Daryl, it is an honor to have you join us for Leadership Talks, especially during this period of time where I know you are incredibly busy. And I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to all of us here at UT, and I'm pretty sure outside of UT as well. It means a lot. Daryl Bazell is the Senior Vice President and CFO of the University of Texas. He is now the senior most leader at the University of Texas, in that he is serving in his leadership role the longest out of all the top 3 or 4 leadership roles here at UT. The way that this works for people who have yet to join us for Leadership Talks is we start the interview with the same questions that we ask everybody, and we end the interview with the same questions that we ask everybody. So because we are short on time for a very, very big topic, which is leading during a crisis, we are going to jump right into it. So Daryl, first question, are you ready?
Sure, fire away.
Okay, in two minutes or less, tell us your career story. 2 minutes or less. How did you get to where you are professionally today?
A pretty simple story, actually. I started as a kid like many that want to change the world. Kid who grew up in the 60s and 70s and realized when he graduated from college, the movement had kind of moved on and subsided a bit, and took a chance in public service and had the opportunity to navigate through a very career in public service to do things I had a passion for. The commonality in all the work I've done has always been centered around looking for opportunities to improve the human condition, be it in the healthcare area or social service area, environmental protection or conservation management, and of course, higher education for the last 17 years.
And you are coming most recently from a place that is also near and dear to my heart. I don't know if you want to give them a plug, but I will. Go Badgers.
That's
University
right.
of Wisconsin-Madison.
That's right. Wonderful school.
Yeah, it is. So what is the second question? What does leadership mean to you?
Let me offer a couple of things, and let me maybe change the question slightly and talk about from a perspective of a senior leader. I think a senior leader has 2 primary responsibilities, and I, of course, differentiate between leadership and management skills of 2 very different sets of competencies. For a senior leader, there are 2 things we need to do very, very well. One is to set a vision, a future direction for the organization, one that can be understood by all the staff and others involved in ways that we can attach to it, and in ways that drive us forward over time. The other thing, which might sound unusual coming from a CFO, it's not about the money. It's about the people. It's about aligning the people and putting them in the best position to help the organization realize the vision. Of course, the other part of what I think about from leadership perspective in general, it's really about that opportunity to work with and through the community of staff and others who, the ones who really do the work. And so the opportunity to help them develop, for them to reach their potential, and probably most importantly, for them to find themselves in the vision of the organization. I think for an employee to do their best work, they have to be able to achieve their own personal goals, but there has to be alignment between that and the organizational goals to the extent that you can align the 2 and to allow employees space to do the work. I think that's certainly something all leaders should aspire to do.
Yeah, there's an old saying in filmmaking that says directing is 90% casting. And I think that applies to recruitment and retention as well. So what's third question? What do you suspect or know bothers people about you as a leader? Or not the same question, but what is your leadership weakness?
Yeah, well, I'll go for the former, right?
Okay.
And so, of course, when you're a leader in organizations, particularly in higher education, no one tells you, right? A lot of, we're not as direct in our communications in higher ed to the extent that I would like for that to be the case. I think the thing that people would probably say is that on occasion, I carry my sense of values and commitment to those kind of like a blunt instrument. I'm unyielding at times, and when it comes to values and integrity, and particularly in situations where I don't see people living up to them in ways that they should. And I tend to be somewhat inflexible at times around that. And maybe some of it comes with age, where you're more insistent around things. But I think that's the one thing that I would point out.
Yeah, I think you're right too. The higher up you go, you sort of need to sometimes put the hammer down. Okay, so let's get into the heart of it. Because there's so much territory to cover here. First, just tell us how the crisis related to COVID-19 unfolded for you. In the beginning, how did it look overall from your perspective?
Yeah, of course, I watched the news as everyone else did in early 2020. For me, it became real essentially when President Fivers came back from New York. And we were concerned about whether or not he and his family were positive. At the week he came back, we began to, actually the week before he came back, we began to hold planning meetings for COVID. And I can remember the first meeting about to walk in the door and Greg tells me, you're in charge. I said, thank you very much. But it was very invigorating. And that might not be a word that comes to mind for many, but I embraced the challenge. And so for me, it was really trying to understand the trajectory of the disease. What do we know about that? How is that impacting our staff and faculty and students? And at the same time, how do we work with them to adjust so we can complete the spring semester? Those were things that were most in the forefront of my mind.
Okay, so then what did contingency planning look like? What were the steps? How did you pull your leadership team together and start figuring out how to move forward?
The most important thing was really about planning an organization. It was really trying to figure out who needs to be around the table because we had to make fairly quick decisions here. Spring break was just about upon us and we're trying to decide what to do. And so, of course, I surrounded myself with very capable people who could help plan with me and then help execute. And so putting that planning group together, and we spent a lot of time each day planning and thinking about what we had to do in preparation for our daily 4 o'clock meeting with the president and other leaders. Those are things, in my mind, the building blocks that allowed us to be successful in pivoting to the extent that we're able to put 9,000 courses online in a 2 or 3 week period and to transition employees from working on the 40 acres primarily to working at home. Quite a challenge, but I think the way we organized and thought through how best to execute without the specifics, just the way you would actually organize around a massive effort like this, I think were the keys to us being able to pivot as quickly as we did as an institution.
Right, remaining agile because that so many unknown variables, which brings us to the next huge agile move here. So a lot of planning took place, and then the ongoing crisis of racial and social injustice was highlighted yet again with the killing of George Floyd. And how did you respond as a leader to that ongoing crisis?
Well, just like every other human, as I thought about and watched what was going on, my first reaction was just a human reaction, and it was really a moment of reflection for me as I thought about the confluence of 3 things. One is I have a very close friend, a former college roommate, who lives in the Twin Cities. He's the diversity officer for a major company there, and so he kept me abreast of what was going on, day to day. The second data point, of course, is I have family members who grew up with George Floyd and was, playground friends of his and classmates of his. So trying to understand, them and what they're going through, was certainly, on my mind as well. But candidly, the thing that really dominated my thoughts was my own experience living through riots as a child and after Dr. King's assassination and seeing what strife was like and seeing your neighborhood up in flames and seeing the military skirmish with neighbors and the like. And for a 9-year-old, that was quite an eye-opener and quite a life-changing experience. And so my very first reactions were those things. Of course, I needed to quickly pivot and think about what does this mean for the University of Texas at Austin? And what does that mean for us? And of course, we've seen a number of actions here, just as we've seen across the country. And I think probably the most important thing to say, Emil, that while it was the George Floyd situation and the treatment of police, people who are job is to serve and protect, of course, there's lots of opportunity there to get better. And I've lived through many of those experiences myself. But as we all know, and we saw the country pivot, and we began to engage in a much broader conversation around social justice, not just for Blacks, but for others. And I think that's been encouraging on many fronts. For me, though, the thing that stands in the forefront of my mind is that at some point you get past the statements that companies put out. I watched our institution do a really nice job of being inclusive and modernizing its statement. But at some point we have to move beyond figures on pancake boxes and instant rice. And so those are easy things. The hard work is still in front of us. And I think that's really the question. I'm encouraged when I see the range of people and the colors of faces out and about who are demanding change. It's encouraging from the perspective that I think, as we all know, that the systems that need to evolve, it will require all of us working together, moving in a common direction to really get us to a better place. So again, the hard work's in front of us. I'm hopeful this institution will continue to step up and embrace that and be open to new ways of thinking, new ways of doing things. But the jury's still out on that. But I am encouraged in ways I haven't been with past situations.
So do you think that there are things that UT, if not could do better or could have done better? Do you have things in mind that University of Texas can do now or should be moving towards now?
Well, so let's talk about this. And when you really think about this, in fact, congratulations on your Office of Learning and Development. I think the work you do provides a place where we can rally around to get better. What do I mean by that? At the end of the day, it's not simply about social justice for Black employees or employees of color here. It's really goes back to something like I said a bit earlier and alluded to. And that is, at the end of the day, we want every employee to bring their full self to bear on our work each and every day, whether that work's being performed at home or whether it's being performed on the 40 acres or another UT site. To do that, we need to take a hard look at ourselves, and we need to recognize that the pathway to allowing everyone to make the maximum contribution to this institution, the pathways look a little bit different. The things we need to do to further remove barriers for women will look different than the things we may need to do to remove barriers for Blacks or folks from Latinx backgrounds. And so it's being open and willing to engage in difficult conversations and learning opportunities. It means that all of us, starting with senior leaders, need to be vulnerable and to allow these conversations to happen. And then for us to step up and lead and move us in a positive direction. So at the end of the day, I often say, I should say this to my professional development, not my professional development, my process improvement person, people I've worked with in the university space in the past, that success means we don't need your role. I quickly follow that by saying that's not going to happen anytime soon. There's no danger of that. But success means that we recognize and celebrate differences, but we're all working in a way that we all feel valued and can make great contributions to this institution. So, I'm optimistic we can do that. A lot of that, as I'm alluding to, happens through learning and development, opportunities. And so that's an area that I intend to personally, put a lot more focus on and a lot more attention, and with an eye towards providing many more opportunities for staff, for faculty, and for students.
Yeah, I as you know, I completely agree. And since people are tuning in to hear my thoughts, not yours, I'll give you my 2 cents. So the learning and development, I agree, it's integral to getting us to move forward. Training is important. We can train people to wear masks. We can train people to behave in an inclusive, welcoming manner. We can train people what racist behavior looks like. But we shouldn't have people working here who are making decisions about wearing a mask based on the rule. And we shouldn't have people saying that they're not going to have racist behavior because of policy. We need them to understand fundamentally why those things are important for a community and how, not only to not be racist, but how to be anti-racist. And that comes from a higher level of learning. And that comes from learning development on a constant level, continuously having this discussion. And that's why learning and development is so essential to making a fully functioning university.
Yeah, if I could just offer one postscript to that, because I can't tell the number of majority of people who have approached me and approached other Blacks that I know around the need to show empathy and asking the question, what can I do? And I've been here, done this and been in these experiences many times, my response is pretty simple. It's not that I don't want empathy or people to show that, yes, I get it. What I really need people to do is to be anti-racist and to carry that banner into every space that they're in, right? In other words, it takes all of us
Right.
together if we're going to get ourselves to a better place. So empathy is fine, but the question is, what are each of us doing to make this a better place?
Actions, right. Okay, so how have your values, I know how important values are. You've established values for this huge portfolio that you run, and you reiterate over and over how important they are. So how have values guided you during these crises?
Yeah, well, it provides the foundation. And as you know, within our portfolio, we focus on diversity, innovation, integrity,
Teamwork.
teamwork, stewardship. And so as we think about those values, those are things we hold on to. And during times of stress, we all kind of fall back to kind of who we are, right? And into our habits of things that we hold near and dear, right? And for me, it's always that sense of core values. And so I think about those often. I use those as a reality check as I contemplate, actions that I take and want to make sure that the things I'm doing and in turn the things others are doing are in alignment with those core values that we share within this institution, certainly within our portfolio. And so as you know, I made that the centerpiece of our strategic plan within FAS. I thought as we brought two diverse portfolios together, that the most important thing to do was to set a solid foundation in a way that we could weather the storms and to endure over time. And what lies at the center of that, of course, are our shared values. And so I've relied on them a lot, and I think others have as well. So I can't overemphasize the importance of a sense of shared values within the community.
That's great. So I want to go into sort of a broader discussion just about leading in a crisis in general. What would you say is the most important role a leader has during a crisis?
Oh, boy, there are several. I don't know if I can just pick one, but I'll just mention a couple of things here. One, of course, is, and we don't always talk about this, we have to provide, again, as I talked about, that sense of direction. We need to keep our communities together. We need to give people reasons to have hope that we will overcome the challenges. You heard me talk about vision earlier. And in my mind, one of the most important roles vision plays is that a vision is something, again, that you aspire to, takes some amount of time to accomplish. But if you have a shared vision that people buy into, that helps you through those rough times when there's uncertainty, and particularly around the things that you have operationalized to try to get you to a different place. When those don't play out in the ways that you had imagined, it's that vision that still holds us together and helps us continue to want to move forward in that common direction. And so it's setting that, again, that direction, reaffirming that. It's again, providing hope, but there's also a lot of active listening that needs to go on, not just with those that might have ideas about how you move forward, but also just listening actively to staff around their hopes, their fears, their concerns. You can't leave them behind. And so you have to take all those into account and think of ways to address those, if you will, as we move all of us, forward to the new reality.
So you mentioned active listening. Are there any other skills, abilities, competencies that you think are particularly important for a leader to have in these times of crisis?
Well, I can tell you, there's a quote, I'll paraphrase it, from Dr. King that always comes, first thing to mind, and that is the measure of a leader, I'm just paraphrasing here, is not during times of comfort and convenience, but it's during times like this, during times of strife. And so for me, and you want a leader that's going to be calm during times like this, one that's not just going to be reactive, so to speak. So again, I think a steady hand, I think, is important. Knowing how to analyze and listen to a range of input from a whole range of players that might take you in very disparate directions, and sorting out, which things or which actions are going to keep us moving forward in direction that best allows us to accomplish our mission. And having that type of skill set, if you know what I mean, I think is important. I think for an institution like this, the hard part about that is that higher education can be a bit hierarchical, and we can be a bit clannish, if you know what I mean, around certain groups. And then other groups aren't part of the conversation. It's about having a skill set to figure out how to reach out and hear from multiple audiences, and to bring more perspectives to bear as choices are made. And so those are things that most come to mind. Of course, you know, at a leadership level, one expects one to have the requisite analytical skills, you know, communication skills to deal with that. I'm really pointing to some of the things in my experience that tend to make a difference with regard to whether you're successful or not in navigating through challenging times such as those we find ourselves in.
Where have you seen leaders fail? Where you know, they just, for whatever reason, they weren't able to cut the mustard, and why do you think that happened?
I think the times that most likely happens is, it's interesting in that when I've seen leaders fail, it hasn't been a function of them not getting good advice. It's oftentimes when one feels the need to make a political decision to please, so to speak, without regard to the true impact, you know, those choices might have on an organization. You lose support real quickly, you know, when you do those kinds of things. At the end of the day, it's not that we should be be tone deaf to the politics of the environment we find ourselves in, but a successful leader finds ways to navigate through the politics in ways that best positions the organization to be successful.
So what about some successful examples, some instances, and if you can think of something specific, that would be great, but I don't want to put you on the spot, where leaders really excelled at leading during a crisis?
Oh boy, there's so many examples of that. I'll give you one. We had a situation where we lost this is my last job at University of Wisconsin-Madison, where we had a chancellor leave in a matter of several weeks. And we talked of a former chancellor who had retired back into service, and he came back roaring. And he did an incredible job of calming the campus down and leading us although he only wanted 1 year, we talked him into staying 2 years. And I can't tell you, I probably learned more from him than almost any other leader. He was in his 80s, and he said, Daryl, I'm gonna work at 80,000 feet, you go do the stuff on the ground. But just talking to him and seeing the way he interacted with people and the confidence that he engendered, you know, just the way he carried himself, the knowledge base he had, and how he leveraged that in difficult conversations. It was really just amazing. The institution could have completely fallen apart, and I think there was steady leadership and understanding what he could and couldn't do, and how to bring other leaders in to help round out our leadership team. I thought was masterful in the way he used, you know, the senior leaders who were part of the portfolio that he inherited.
That's something we haven't talked about, and that's important. We should also mention that at UW, the chancellor is like the president here.
That's correct. You're just opposite.
But that idea that the leader can't do anything, and sort of hiring to fill gaps or to compensate for weaknesses is also such an important element of sound leadership.
And most people won't acknowledge that. You
Right.
know, I've talked to David several times, said, Daryl, I'm 80. I know what I'm really good at. I know where I need other strength, and we're going to move forward. And he embraced that.
Yeah. Okay, so who has inspired you during the past few months, or just generally serves as an inspiration to you as a leader?
Yeah, I can't point to one person,
Okay.
but the thing I guess I would point to is really the human spirit. If you think about, and you mentioned, looking at, of course, racial justice issues, of course, the pandemic, the economic impact of all of that. Just the human spirit, how people have found ways to persevere and to reinvent themselves in ways that allow us to move forward. Of course, there's still very much a work in progress, and certainly in part because we still don't understand the trajectory of the impact of these three things. But just seeing the human spirit and the hope that engenders in turn, I find very invigorating. I'm the type of person who grew up by learning from everybody. I learned a lot about life by just watching others. And so it's always been part of my style and my personality. And so I've done a lot of that in the past few months and found lots and lots of reasons to be inspired by the acts of everyday people.
And I know that you sort of pass that on. You're a mentor yourself in many ways. And so in the way that you learn from others, you're doing that for other people to learn from you, right?
That's right. And I think that's my responsibility. I grew up in communities where it was always made known that, as a Black person, if you are successful, you have a responsibility. That was ingrained in me early in life. That was always a deeply held family value. And so for me, it's a natural thing to do. And again, I think it plays well with, our roles as leaders in large complex organizations. Again, our job is to help get the best out of everyone and to help everyone shine. And so I think there's good alignment between my personal values and my responsibilities as an institutional leader.
Right. All right, let's bring it in. Last three questions.
Okay.
First, what are you currently reading?
Well, there's a book that's been sitting on my bookshelf for several years called Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. And so why I was inspired to read that during the pandemic, I'm not quite sure, but I opened it up and started reading. It's as the book says, it's a history of humankind. It's very interesting book. And so I'm enjoying that although of course I have several books I've opened up, but this one I found quite interesting.
Yeah, good timing. So I should have mentioned this at the head, but I'll mention it now. This because often the questions on the Facebook feed are, what was that book he just said? And we're not responding to the Facebook feed right now, but we'll go in later. If Daryl has time, he might just stop in there and answer a few questions that are left unanswered. So feel free to ask those questions now, and we'll try and get to them at some point. Two more questions. What was the hardest thing you have had to do as a leader?
Oh, I won't be too specific here, other than to say there's a person, I've had many mentors in my life, people who have helped me be successful. I had to fire one once. I ended up
a mentor.
Yes.
Wow.
That was hard.
Yeah.
And it was over an ethical lapse, and there wasn't pushback, but that was one of the hardest conversations I ever had to have. It was one I knew I had to have, but that was difficult.
Yeah, that is tough. Just to close this out, give me just two key pieces of leadership advice for all of our listeners and viewers.
Well, I think there's one that stands above anything else, and that is the need to always be humble and to recognize that the power and influence we have as leaders is given to us. It's not a right. And so being humble and respectful and recognizing that those we lead are the ones who allow us to lead them. And so I think that's really, really important. The other thing I would say, and this is no different, and I don't mean to offer this in a paternalistic manner, but if you look at organizations and their culture, people watch what you do. And so as a leader, you need to always ensure that you're leading from a base of integrity. We've talked about values on this chat several times. I just can't overemphasize the importance of modeling and the right behavior.
That's great. Daryl, always a pleasure. And again, we are honored to have taken the time to talk with us. We're honored to have you as our leader. And thank you so much. And I will be talking to you again sometime soon.
And thanks so much for the opportunity, and good luck to you. And I look for great things from your office.
Thank you so much, Daryl. Bye-bye.